How's everyone doing this morning?
Good. Amazing.
That's what I want to hear. So Craig already introduced me. My name is Steve. I'm not the CEO of Content King. That's a role I do not want to have because you get to shovel a lot of shit. I like to work on content marketing and community management, and that's basically what I do at Content King.
You told me you owned it.
Well, yeah, sure, but you can own it without being the CEO. So my partner Vincent is CEO, and he's a lot better at that. So it's good for me. I can do what I love. And one of the things I love doing is talking about SEO. So if you could kill the lights a little. Cool. So I'm going to be talking about UX and SEO, and basically how to leverage UX to win at SEO. One of the first things that always come to mind when I see a speaker on stage, I ask myself, like, why should I listen to this person? Well, to answer that, I drink and I know things. Well, I've actually stopped drinking, but I do know a thing or two about SEO. I've worked 3 years in-house, started my own agency, did that for 6-7 years, and then we founded Content King. I contribute to Search Engine Journal, Content Marketing Institute, CMS Wire, and I love to speak. I've, for instance, done that at the Raleigh SEO Meetup, Digital Olympus Conference, and so on. I'm the co-organizer of the largest SEO meetup in the Netherlands, by the way. So if you're ever in the Netherlands, hit me up to see if there's a meetup going on. So Content King's been mentioned. What is it? What does it do? Content King is a real-time SEO auditing and change tracking platform. And that's a lot of words. I'll explain what it means. So auditing in real time means we're continuously crawling sites to look for issues and changes. And in case of high impact...
Really close, just hold the mic close to yourself.
Like this?
Yeah.
Is it better?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So in case of high impact changes and issues, we send out alerts. So for instance, we say, hey, your robot's text file is unavailable, or it contains a disallowed slash, meaning that search engines can't access anything anymore. Stuff like that. All right, UX and SEO, a little trip down memory lane. Who has been doing SEO for, let's say, 8 years or more? Can I see some hands? All right, so if you look at how SEO was done back then, there was a lot of friction between the UX and the SEO departments. So the goals of the two teams were very much divergent. UX teams would love to create pretty pages, and the UX and the SEO teams would want to have links everywhere, content everywhere, and they would basically butcher the pretty design. Well, here we have an example from Zalando, the shoe e-com platform. And you see here at the bottom a bunch of text. No one's going to read it except for search engines. Why is it there? Because it worked. The same for those annoying tag clouds everyone used on the right-hand side in the sidebar, like one of those default WordPress features. It's there because it worked. It helped to get your content crawled and indexed a lot faster than without the tag cloud. And the same goes for footer links. So this is actually the footer menu for the Monsterboard website from, I don't know, like 10 years ago. This basically contains all of the categories they have. And this is just stuck at the bottom of the page. No one's really going to use it except for search engines. They'll crawl the links, etc., etc. At least they used to. So why were these goals divergent? Because it worked. So if you're going to create a pretty page and no one's going to visit it because it's not ranking, you're going to get a very, very low ROI. So you had to find some common ground back then, because the UX and SEO teams basically had to work together to create something that they were both moderately happy with. So times have changed. And it's become really, really interesting, and that's where we're going to be focusing on. The SEO and UX goals have become convergent. if you look at Google's search quality rater guidelines, you will see a lot of mentions of satisfying search results, user experience, usability, happy users, blah, blah, blah. Who here has ever looked at the quality rater guidelines? All right, that's good. That's good. For those that haven't, it's basically a handbook for people that manually verify Google's search results. So they get queries that they need to look at, and they look at all the results showing up for the queries to see if they belong there, basically. So the fact that UX and SEO goals are convergent makes having a happy marriage between the two teams a lot easier than, say, 10 years ago. And that's good news. Make love, not war. But how do you make it a happy marriage? Well, just like normal marriages between people, show appreciation and respect, aim to achieve common goals, and do it together. And the key is together. So, what is user experience? The definition from Wikipedia is, in commerce, user experience refers to the person's emotions and attitudes about using a particular product, service, or system. And when you apply that to the context of the web, my opinion is a great user experience means you're giving users a satisfying answer to their question. You do this fast, and you do that on a website that's easy to use on any device. So it's about satisfaction, it's about speed, it's about ease of use, basically. Why is user experience important? Because it's become a factor for Google to consider when ranking sites. Okay, so that's really interesting for the SEOs here. If there's people doing CRO, they've known about this for decades. If you have great usability, you will make more money. So that means more sales, more organic traffic, and happier customers that go on to be brand ambassadors, possibly. So user experience is good for everyone. It's really important in 2019. From here on out, it's only going to become more important. So keep that in mind. So just to reiterate, a user wants a satisfying answer to a question. They want it fast on a site that's easy to use on any device. So whether they're lying in bed and they want to look up something about, I don't know, an actor, they've watched a TV show on Netflix or whatever, it should be easy to use, the site should be accessible, etc., etc. So the satisfying answer, what does it really mean? Who here has heard about search intent in relation to SEO? I see a couple of hands. So when we're talking about search intent, we're talking about the user's intention behind a search query. And if you hit that, if you give the user exactly what he or she wants, you satisfy that answer. So, for instance, if you were searching for best CBD oil, what would be the most satisfying result besides your site ranking first? You want to see a comparison of different CBD oils, and ideally someone that's tried, I don't know, a couple dozen, maybe 100 different oils and listed all the best ones. And when best is included in a query, it implies people want to see a comparison rather than a page explaining, hey, this is the best one. Because that's not how it works. That used to work 10 years ago. It doesn't anymore. So if you search for queries like this, you'll always see comparison pages, tables, pros and cons, etc., etc. So hitting search intent is the key to search engines and your users' hearts. So keep that in mind because it's going to come back. If you fail at hitting search intent, search engines aren't going to rank your content anymore. So for instance, if you write a page about the best CBD oil, but it doesn't include a comparison or whatever, it's not very likely it's going to rank. And you can send links at it, etc., etc. But if you consistently fail at delivering a good user experience, you're not going to get that ranking. You're not going to get the click, etc., etc. You're not going to get those happy customers. So these are specifically interesting sections. When we're talking about search intent, Google has written quite a lot about this. It includes basically some training information for the quality rater guidelines. So look it up if you have a bit of time, if you're interested. This is an interesting query. So if I search for how to make pancakes, what are the kind of results I want to see? I have a question, I want to learn how to do something. It has to do with food, so I want to see recipes, maybe a video of someone baking pancakes. And if there is a recipe, I want to see reviews. I want to see what other people think of the recipe, because that trust that other people put into the site, that really helps to build trust and credibility. So here we have an example, screenshot, and we see that there's 3 videos ranking for that query. So it's people actually baking pancakes. And then the result underneath that, and I'm not sure how well you can see it over there, but it has the stars. So it's actually been reviewed quite a bit, and it's getting a ton of clicks. And it has a video embedded on it as well. So if you basically reverse engineer this result, the thing that really makes it rank is the type of content, the recipe marked up with schema to tell search engines it's a recipe, with the reviews and the video and the explanation, basically how to make the pancakes. That all combined really makes this page rank. So the next one up is Kit Harington Picture. So if you want to rank for this, you need to have pictures of Kit Harington, and ideally some biography of him to become more and more relevant for that query. So the more pictures you put on a page of Kit Harington, the better you'll rank as well. I see there's a very pretty mustache one. It's maybe when he was trying out for Game of Thrones. But if you look at the type of query and you try to reverse engineer that, and you apply what you've learned when creating content of your own, that's really useful. And a lot of this basically comes down to thinking logically about things. So what about the query mortgage how much? What are people looking for? I think people are looking for how much money they can borrow to buy a house based on their income. Maybe they have a partner, maybe they don't. So I want to see a page that explains the rules of engagement around getting mortgages. Like what can and can't I do? And ideally, something that includes a calculator where I can basically fill in my income and I get a ballpark figure of the amount of money I can borrow. So if you look at this query and you click on the first couple of results, you see pages that delivered a good user experience. And it's a page that explains basically what it is. It includes a calculator, and it satisfies the answer people have. Robots Text Guide, and this is an interesting one because it's pretty generic. It's a research intent query. People really want to dig into a certain subject. And when I wrote the Robots Text Guide, that's exactly what I was going for. So if you look at the results, see that we're ranking all the way at the top with the stars. This one gets a ton of clicks, which is really good. It's a long read. It's, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 words article explaining the ins and outs of robots text. It's continuously being updated, et cetera, to keep it relevant as well. So it's important to touch on word count here as well, because the article I wrote about the Robots Text Guide is long for a reason. It's long because the query warrants it's a lengthy article. But for instance, if you have a less complex query that's easier to answer, For instance, something like, is the grass green? You can do with a lot less text. So hitting search intent isn't just about creating a very long article. That's not how it works. A simple question can have a really simple answer. So keep that in mind. So this is the first result I got for why is grass green, and it basically explains the chemistry behind grass, and it just answers the question in the first paragraph, which is good, and then it goes on a little bit more about stuff that matters less to the answer, but that's it. And this page is just ranking. So in summary, choose the best content type to match the query intent. So for instance, if you think, okay, people are going to want a video or a recipe, include that. And when doing keyword research, this is stuff that you can do yourself. You can just type in the queries, look for the common denominators in the search results, and basically grab that, include that in your page, add your own thoughts, spin it, and off you go. Give the visitors exactly what they're looking for, and make the content as long or short as possible to just hit search intent. So hitting search intent is one. It will get you ranking your pages for certain search queries. But when it's ranking in the SERP, you want to win that click. You don't want your competitors to get the click instead of you. So how do you do that? It's old school SEO, what we've been doing for decades. A proper title, good URL, meta description, and perhaps some enhanced snippets like the stars. So for instance, I grabbed the example from the best CBD oil query, and we see that in the title it says the 10 best CBD oils, which is good. I want to get a comparison and like a digest of the research other people have done. So that's really good. And it addresses the pain points like anxiety relief, pain relief, and so on. I think the URL is a bit too long, could be shorter, but the stars below that really make up for that because it gives it trust and credibility. And a meta description addresses the query intent as well, because it says, hey, we've tried like 100 different oils, and these are the best one. It's a simple list you can use. And when I see simple, I think, hey, that's what I really want. I want to get a quick answer. Someone else has done the legwork already. So satisfying answers is about trust and credibility as well. I just touched on that subject. And when I hear trust and credibility in SEO, I immediately think about EAT and all of the theories and the rumors spreading, being spread about EAT. EAT stands for expertise, authority, and trust. And it's basically something that's been used in the quality rater guidelines by Google for a while, but it's become more and more important for certain people to look into with all of the updates we've seen since, I don't know, September last year, I think, when the Your Money or Your Life sites were getting hit pretty hard, and everyone was saying, hey, this is EAT related. Google didn't really debunk it because it's good for them if everyone's focusing on trust and credibility, et cetera, et cetera. So there's not just a handful of factors that impact your expertise, trust and credibility, et cetera. It's likely hundreds of factors. So keep this in mind. When I think about trust and credibility, I just look at the user point of view. So for instance, if I'm submitting my income records to that tool that will tell me how much money I can borrow, I don't want to do it over an insecure connection. I want to make sure it's a secure connection because I don't want anyone eavesdropping. Or when I read a blog article, I want it to come from a medical professional, or at the very least, it should have been fact-checked by a medical professional, because I'm not going to just take advice from anyone. So if you look at trust and credibility from this point of view, and you look at what's out there, what's working, you could, for instance, come across this site. It's about weight loss, and the person that wrote it is very passionate about this topic. She knows a lot about it, but she's not a medical specialist. However, her colleague has reviewed it, and she does have a medical background and degree. And I'm not sure if you can see it, but it says under the title by whom it's been written and by whom it's been fact-checked, links to their profile pages, and the profile pages explain like who they are and basically why you should believe what they're saying. So I think this makes a lot of sense, and this is something I'm seeing more and more, especially in the niches that have been hit hard with all of the latest Google updates. So we talked about search intent, hitting that, winning the click, people land on your site, you're trustworthy, etc., but your site's super slow, and people are basically just going to leave because it's just not working. Nobody wants to wait. So Google's done some research. 53% of the mobile site visits leave a page if it takes longer than 3 seconds to load. It's the thing with Google research. And this is pretty impressive. So you got to make sure your site is really fast. But you also need to take into account the competitive landscape. So it already pays off if you're faster than your competition. So if the competitive landscape dictates that sites are slow as fuck, and you're just a little quicker, it's already a win. Ideally, it just loads as fast as possible, and there's 100 different things you can do, but yeah, we all work with budgets, so you gotta use it on what makes most sense. So what are some of the things you can do, and what should you be focusing on? Time to interactive is important. So when people in UX and when Google looks at pages, time to interactive means the time it takes before a page can be interacted with by a person. So I'm sure you know these examples where you basically load up a page, you try to scroll, nothing happens, the content is still loading, etc., etc. There's probably a bunch of JavaScript loaded in the background. It's very annoying. That means the page has a very long time to interactive time. So what you can do is you can basically trick people a little, for instance, with lazy loading, which we'll come to in a minute. So a content delivery network will really help speed up your site, because it enables a person to get the site data from the clearest edge. So for instance, CDN has, I don't know, thousands of servers across the globe. And if I, for instance, if I visit the Content King site from here, I'll be hitting a different server than if I were to do that from Amsterdam or from the Czech Republic, where we have an office as well. So it's a very efficient way to basically get your information the fastest. Plus, it helps against DDoS attacks and stuff to, basically slow your site really down. Use caching, minifying, etc., to basically make it a very efficient process when people visit your site. All of this stuff matters. It all shaves off maybe a couple of 100 milliseconds, maybe more, but it all helps. And avoid render blocking resources. So for instance, what you're seeing a lot on WordPress is when you're using a bunch of plugins, like for instance, social media plugins and so on. They're often using the same libraries, but every plugin loads its own library. And some of it can cause issues. People are not very mindful of the amount of JavaScript they use, but it's basically, in terms of page speed optimizations, it's really expensive to use JavaScript, so keep that in mind. And when I say render blocking, it means that it's basically slowing down the whole rendering process, meaning that the time to interactive can dramatically increase, meaning the user experience becomes shit, and people leave and go to the next site. Lazy loading images means that you're loading images right before they're needed. So for instance, if I have a very long article and I include a bunch of images at the bottom. There's no need to already load those images when you're basically loading up the site. You can do so as the person scrolls down. That makes the page, the time to interactive for that page goes down. So it's a lot earlier to use, basically. And this is just a little trick that can have a big impact on the user experience. Google's got quite some resources on this. There's resources included in all of the slides. I'll share the slides afterwards, so there's no need to make notes of that. You can look it up if you want, research it on your own. There's a couple of tools out there that'll help you analyze page load speed. I'll not go into detail. You can check them on your own if you want to. So in summary, be faster than your competition, focus on the time to interactive, apply all best practices, but and use the tools, but don't lose yourself in the tools, because at the end of the day, it really matters what a user, his experience is like. And the tools and users are still different things. There's this Belgian SEO guy, and he says, yeah, a fool with a tool is still a fool, which is of course correct. So yeah, keep that in mind. Easy to use sites, so usability. When it comes to SEO, what do we mean when we come to a page? What are we really looking for? So a person wants a site that's easy to use. It should be easy to use on any device. So there's basically two components, usability and mobile friendliness. So first we'll look at usability, and site structure. Having a clear navigation and content headings is really, really important. So are you familiar with the REI e-commerce shop for outdoor clothing and stuff? So they have a very detailed and well thought out process for managing their navigation, because it really focuses on the trips people are going to make and the issues they have and the stuff they'll need. So this is really useful. I think this is a really good example of having a good navigation. So a navigation can be a navigation leading to different pages, but if you have a very long page, you can have a navigation within your page as well. So having, for instance, a table of content increases the usability of a page, because you can just jump to the section that's really important to you right now. A clear heading structure is another one, because people will scan headings to basically verify whether they are on the right page for them. So this is really important. It's an example about sleep deprivation. What happens if you don't sleep enough? And it really makes it clear that this is a page that goes into detail, and that it can basically answer the query I have about that. And yes, I have 2 young children. I occasionally have sleep deprivation. So when you're talking about content, the inverted pyramid is useful. The inverted pyramid is used by journalists for hundreds of years, basically. It basically states that you should include the most important content at the top and then work your way down. Basically, the typical structure for newspapers. Doing that helps you satisfy the search query early on, and if people want to keep on reading, they can do so. But making sure that you satisfy their answer as soon as you can is really important within the whole user experience. And the user experience basically starts when people start searching in Google, and it ends when they get what they need, or they basically hit the goal you want them to. Could be like a newsletter sign up, etc., etc. Downloads within your articles can make it a lot better. So for instance, something we often do is include cheat sheets. So we write an article about a complex topic, and having a flow chart or a table explaining the pros and cons of different methods to use to fix a certain issue that they can just print off and hang next to their desk really increases the usefulness of the article. But you can also include a feature to basically just leave your email address and you'll get the article in PDF form if you don't have time to read it. So I put articles I want to read in Pocket. It's like an app to keep track of all of the stuff I want to read, and I'm adding a lot more that I'm really reading, but it gives me a good feeling to know that I've saved this for later. But you can also just leave your email address and get it in PDF form sometimes, and that's a good feature. You can just read it on the go, even when you don't have an internet connection. And an important one is going easy on distractions like ads, pop-ups, or those annoying bars at the bottom, or the, hey, can we send you the direct messages within your browser, like the browser notifications. A lot of sites ask for it. A lot of people don't want it. So go easy on that. And I've included a couple of examples. For instance, this is an example of a cheat sheet. You can just get a preview, fill in an email, get it via email. And a couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine sent me an article, say, hey Steve, check this out. It's actually about digital marketing. Quick tips on how to try to improve websites' Google ranking. Okay, so I said, hey dude, where is the actual article? I just see ads everywhere. So ads at the top, ads at on the sides, at the bottom, etc., etc. So I just left because this is a very, very poor user experience. Here's another one. I was searching in Google, opening a couple of tabs, and then when I got to reading this one, I had already gotten to pop-ups. Free digital planning templates. Hey, do you want to get them via email and get a bunch of email messages as well? Are you following all the best practices, blah, blah, blah. Stuff like this really pushes back the content I was looking for to satisfy my search query. So I ask you, is this a satisfying answer to the search query I have? I didn't think so. It is not. Mobile friendliness, and this is pretty well documented by Google as well. So stuff like text size, and whether you include viewports, and make sure that the content isn't wider than the screen, as well as that there is enough room between clickable elements. It's like the fat finger syndrome. You always hit the wrong button if the elements are too close. Stuff like this, it's all being checked in Google Search Console. When you do the Google's mobile friendliness test, you'll see similar results. So I highly recommend making sure that you covered all of the basics. As a bonus, I looked at localization. So when I think about localization, it goes way beyond just translating a page. So for instance, our site is offered in 5 languages. And when we localize the content, we just don't just translate the content. We also include different images, and we address people in the right way. We use different currencies and so on. So localization is an important part of the customer journey. So especially if you're talking about currencies. So if someone from the UK goes to our pricing page, it's in pounds. If someone from the Czech Republic does it, it's in Czech crowns. If someone from the Netherlands or Sweden goes to the pricing page, it's in euros primarily. And sure, you can switch, but stuff like this matters because it makes it easier to use. Using the right measurement system. So for instance, if you go looking for sneakers and you end up on a site from the US, it's difficult for me to understand because they use a different measurement system. So making sure you use the right measurement system for your target audience is really important. Date and time format, obvious one. But approaching people in their language and cultural context is really important as well. So for instance, if I'm selling mountain bikes to people in the Czech Republic, I'm gonna include images of Czech landmarks that people will see when they go mountain biking through the woods and stuff, because that's something they can identify with, and it beats having some generic stock photo. So, in summary, UX and SEO, how to make it a happy marriage. It's really important to work towards the same goals, and nowadays you can, because that's basically the course Google is following. Show appreciation and respect to one another, aim to achieve common goals, and do everything together. The user wants a satisfying answer to their question, they want it fast, and they want it on a site that's easy to use on any device. Keeping the click is really important, because if you fail at any stage of the customer journey, basically, you are not going to make any money. So it's not just about making sure you're ranking, but it's also about winning the click and keeping the user on your page. So this is the most important stuff I want to cover. There's one more thing I want to mention, and there's a lot of controversy around this. Basically, is SERP data being used as a ranking factor in Google's algorithm? And Google's been consistently saying no. And there have been a lot of experiments done, which is basically saying otherwise. And I feel Google's kind of hiding behind terminology, and they have a different meaning of ranking factor than we do. For most SEOs, it's basically, does this influence my rankings, yes or no? But Google has a very different set of thoughts on that. So if you take all of that ambiguity away, does SERP data, basically what results are getting clicks and which don't, does that lead to improved rankings? Hell yeah. And the reason behind that is pretty simple. If people consistently skip the first couple of results, they click it, they come back, and result 4 is the best one every time, because people don't come back to Google's search engine result page. The 4th result is very likely to answer the question. And what you'll see is that Google will grab that 4th result and move it up a little, and to basically verify a hypothesis that they have. And that could be like, hey, is this page a better, more satisfying answer to the query, yes or no? So that's the final note on SERP data. Why is UX important? Well, if you want to make money, get more organic traffic, and happier customers, you really should be paying attention to this. If you want to dig in a little deeper, I published an article about this very topic with a ton of examples and more explanation. So if you want to read up on it, check it out. My name is Steven van Vessum. You can find me on social media. I'm an easy man to find. And if you want to give Content King a spin, I have an exclusive offer with an extended trial of 4 weeks. So you can just give it a try, see what kind of changes are happening on your site, what kind of issues you have, etc., etc. Just send me an email and I'll set it up for you. Thank you very much.